Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Astro Bloom Podcast. My name is Vanya Banks, and I am your host. And I'm joined today by my friend Jessica Short of Willow Ray Healing. Welcome, Jess. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you today about the work that you do, the amazing work that you do, and how you got there, and also really talk about some of the current energy that we're all experiencing, and this day that we've really curated to help guide people through that. So I'd maybe invite you to just give us a little bit of a background of what it is that you do, how you serve people. And then the part two to that would be really like sort of how you got there. So I know that's a big question, but maybe take it in those two parts.
I will do my best. So as Anya said, my name is Jess from Willow Ray Healing. I'm a shamanic guide and energy practitioner. So I guide people through accessing the stored trauma or unprocessed emotional wounds in the body. And I do this by using the different psychic gifts that have been passed down through my matrilineage and use those as guiding tools to help the clients then receive their own wisdoms from their own energy, from their own body. And I do that by guiding them through shamanic journeys. And I've noticed throughout the years of doing this work with people that the core of what this work is that moves through me is to really allow people to dismantle all of the conditioning and programming that has been just layered and layered and layered on top of their wounds to protect them, and to allow them to soften and peel away these layers to get closer and closer to who they truly, truly are at the core of their essence, so that they can feel free and capable to take up the space they're meant to take up here in this world and really stand in who they are.
That's so
Um, I love it. I love it a lot. And it always stems down to trauma work, inner child healing, past life, ancestral healing. And sometimes there's elements of energy work that's needed with like removing entities and energy cords and all of that jazz.
Mhm.
Um, and I've also come to realize that a lot of us are really craving play and connection. I believe truly to my core that as spirits brought into this human vessel, we were excited to come to Earth to experience the earthly delights and to play. And we've really lost sight of that due to social conditioning. And so, because of that, I like to run different events to help access that, like
I love that. That's so
cacao
important.
ceremony. What's that?
I was just saying, like, that's so important because I think, especially like being in the healing space too, like, we can get so caught up in like this never ending healing journey and just get a little bit too serious about life. And I definitely have to remind
Right.
myself that, often of like making time for play. It's also my big like Virgo and Capricorn signature of just working all the time. So I really appreciate you remind me that I need to play every once in a while.
Yeah, see, that's probably all that fire that I have in my chart. It's
Hmm.
like the flames, I like to be moving and spontaneity and that spark. And I kind of need that personally. And so it's nice to see how, yeah, how that comes through me to offer that play for people. Like dance and body movement is such a huge thing that I like to invite in. I've noticed that comes in a lot for clients as suggestions to help connect to themselves and build intimacy with themselves. And like I was going to say, the cacao ceremonies that I hold monthly, or spend on average monthly, to connect to the dance and our bodies in a really deep, playful way. It's like you said, the work doesn't have to be so hard all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually really wanted to make it to your last one. I didn't quite make it to the cacao ceremony, but I really am feeling called to dance a lot lately. It's something I did as a kid. And it became very competitive and just kind of weird, and I gave it up. But it's something I did really enjoy as a kid, and so I have been feeling called to that again. So I'll have
I
to.
love that. I love that. Yeah, I'd love to have you join.
Amazing. So you mentioned, shamanism, and I just for people who might not, understand what that is there anything else that you can add to like what you know, obviously I think everyone has their own spin of how they show up as a shaman, but is there anything else you can maybe add to that might help people understand what a shaman is?
Yeah, so the shamanic healing that I do, I've it's fun, it's fascinating because over the years I've come to realize, oh, the work that I'm doing is shamanic work. It wasn't really something that I chose. I've just started to understand that it was what was moving through me.
Mhm.
And for me, the correlation there was guiding. The way that I guide people is very, very intuitive to what their higher self or their energy body is needed. And so I'm able to connect to these other realms with understanding and guide the clients to these other realms for them to access that same understanding. And
Mhm.
so in those other realms, it's beyond time and space where the healing happens. So, for example, it would be sort of like a visualization, but accessing energy from, let's say, a childhood wound, really in real time, facing that stored energy and feeling it, processing, connecting to it, and understanding why it's there, and understanding what it needs from you. And it's meeting that energy that's still present in the body through a journey to access the information and the wisdom that's held there, to then transmute it. And as I mentioned before, I've come to realize these gifts that were passed down through my natural lineage, my mother, her mother, and her mother, as far as I know. We're just very, very highly intuitive women, as most people are. But my ability to access that has been very, very close to me my whole life in
Mhm.
various forms of sensing energy, being empathetic, seeing energy, channeling message for people. But I never really knew that's what I was doing. I just thought I was living like everyone else until it was illuminated to me that this is you actually accessing different forms of communication with spirit. Um, and so, because of these other ways of communicating through spirit, is what really helps me tune in and access those other realms to then bring them into this human realm,
That's really
if that
cool.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I feel
Mhm.
like I've always learned about shamanism as like being, yeah, going through like these different layers and these different worlds, right? And whenever I think of shamanism, I do often really very much relate it to like the underworld in some aspects, right? Because I think there are some aspects
Mm.
of shamanism of like the different worlds, right? The different realms that you go through. Um, and so that to me really speaks to like this deep subconscious energy of, you know, Pluto essentially, because Pluto is the underworld. So that I think that
Mm.
relates very well to,
Mm.
you know, the energy we're all feeling collectively, and we're going to be working with very deeply this year, I think. um,
Yeah.
just to kind of backtrack before we get into some of the current energies and dive a little bit deeper into Pluto and the upcoming eclipse season. I guess, is there anything that you wanted to share around sort of your healing journey and how you got to, you know, being where you are now?
Yeah. Okay. So from a very young age, I always felt this sense of not belonging. So I had this belonging wound. And I recall when I was 15, I told my mother that I was put on the wrong planet, and it was very clear to me that I wasn't from here. And it felt like, okay, they put me on the wrong planet, so if I die, it's okay. And it's just because I wasn't meant to be here. And I wasn't depressed. It was very, very much just a very clear knowing, but compounded with that belonging wound. I
Mm-hmm.
think I was very much attuned to the origin of my spirit, knowing that I had come from somewhere else, but not really sure why I came here. And so, because of that, that was like really pivotal for me growing up. I really, really felt like a wild animal put in the zoo. And I'm looking around like, what is going on? Like, does no one else see that this makes absolutely no sense? And it was hard because I felt no sense of guidance in that, no sense of belonging in that. I had no one that really understood that with me, no one that could relate to me in that sense. You know, I'm in grade school trying to just understand just the subtleties of like our human structure. And so then in high school started learning about world religion. I was raised a Catholic. And being a Catholic, I wasn't a Catholic, but being raised a Catholic, I had a lot of questions. As a seeker, I was very, very, very much wanting to understand this religious concept of life, but a lot of it didn't resonate and make sense. And so when I started learning about world religions, it felt like a doorway opened up. It was like, oh my God, they're speaking my language. I didn't realize this was possible. And from there, it just made a lot of sense to me that I wanted to travel the world and just understand other ways of connecting to the earth and to connecting to other humans and just a different way of living that didn't feel right to me in the Western world. So I did what I had to do. I went through the notions of school, like had to, become a bit more of a young adult to actually start making my own individual choices. But once I did, I left the country, traveled a lot. I was transiting for a few years, just trying to discover myself ultimately. And once I came back to Canada, well, I was in Peru for quite some time, and Spirit told me it's time to go back to Canada and work with women. And at that point in my life, I had no idea what that meant. So I started going to women's circles. I started connecting more to the communities, especially like returning back to Canada. It felt like I was trying to integrate as well. While doing that, it's also now time for me to face all of the things that were inside of me that I was inevitably running from when I was traveling. And so there was a big seeking element when traveling, but it all really, really came up once I returned home to my homeland. And so as I'm connecting to women's circles, I'm also now meeting other types of healers and going in and doing my shadow work and my inner child healing and past life healing, ancestral healing. I'm just doing all this healing. And but before that started, actually, I was at a full moon circle and met my mentor, and it was really spontaneous. She asked me if I knew how to connect to the energy of crystals. I didn't know what that meant, and she invited me to wave my hand over it, and I felt the energy, and she said, I want to work with you, and brought me to her home, and we just started playing. And to this day we're really good friends, but at the time, for her, she's like, I'm not your mentor, we're just playing, we're just having a good time. I'm like, you don't understand like how much she didn't understand how much she was really guiding me.
Mm.
I was just very humble about it. And because of that meeting, she helped me see how I was navigating through this world, and that really helped me integrate my sense of belonging with myself and my purpose here.
Wow, that's so amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can
Yeah.
definitely relate to that sense of like escapism too. Like I know you have a lot of energy in your 12th house, right? So it's that like Pisces energy of like needing to belong to something greater too, like to feel connected to something
Mm,
greater. And then when we're not able to kind of like get that need met, we seek to escape, right? We seek to kind of run away from things, but also to uncover the things that are hidden in the 12th house, to like really dive into the subconscious, right? And unearth the things that are hidden there too. So yeah, I
yeah.
love how that comes through your work, really like working in that realm of the subconscious.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very aligned.
Yeah, because your sun is in Aries in the 12th house, is it not? Right?
My sun is in Aries. Is that in the 12th house?
I think it's in the 12th house because you're Taurus rising, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is a lot of
Okay.
like when you have planets in the 12th house, they are very subconscious in a way, and they take effort to really like unearth and learn what they're all about. And if your
Mm,
sun is in the 12th house, it's really about like unearthing like what is my identity? Like what am I meant to like grow into? What's my life purpose? So
mhm.
that
That
makes
makes a lot of sense.
cool. Okay, so Um, thank you for that. Thank you for being open and sharing that journey. It's really inspiring to see, someone who is able to kind of take all of these learnings from the travels that you've done, from the different cultures you've experienced, from just the different healing that you've done on yourself, and really be able to integrate that wisdom and share it with other people and help other people through, healing these aspects of self too.
Yeah.
So I mean, since we're already on the trend of talking about, Pluto energy, maybe this is a good time to segue into kind of the energies that are really, I think, coming up this year, specifically right now as we're leading into eclipse season. And really, like, the reason why we've focused on using a shamanic journey to really, like, focus on inner child healing in our Revive and Empower Day retreat, which is happening on April 15th. For those of you that don't know, um, registration is still open until Monday night next week. So, yeah, let us know if you have any questions. But essentially, we've structured this whole day, Jess and I, around the energy that we're moving into. So, Pluto, which I talked about in my recent episode on really unearthing the inner gold with Pluto. So if you haven't listened to that, please go back and listen to it before we dive into this aspect. But essentially, Pluto is the underworld. He's the lord of the underworld. He's Hades in Greek mythology. And so whenever we have a big shift in Pluto energy, it asks us to unearth everything that is unseen in a specific area of our charts. So personally and collectively. And so Pluto has recently moved from Capricorn to Aquarius. Capricorn is all about the old traditions, the old structures, everything that is kind of like old and ingrained. Aquarius is all about the new, the ability to decondition these things. And so with this shift, we're really collectively and personally being asked to decondition some of these old, outdated patterns, right? That might stem from our childhood, that might stem from this conditioning we've received, and really step into our own individuality and like our authentic truth. And you talked about that a lot, Jess, of like peeling back the layers, right? Doing the shadow work. And Pluto really is shadow work at the end of the day, because we're heading into that like unseen realm. So this year, Pluto is really testing us to step into our soul evolutionary journey, into our sort of north node in our charts, again, collectively and personally, depending on where this energy is coming up for everyone listening. But really, this is happening because it's forming a tense aspect to the nodes of fate, or the lunar nodes, which are really involved in our eclipse seasons. And eclipse seasons are portals of like really accelerated spiritual evolution. So all of this to say, this is really like, I guess I just wanted to relate the archetype of Pluto back to the work that you do, and kind of close the loop on that, and integrate the fact that like this is really the energy that we're working with when we're going into a shamanic journey, like with the work that you're doing. Do you have any thoughts to share on that at all?
Yeah, I agree. I like how the shadow work aspect is so deeply related to Pluto and the underworld. It's like the unseen realms, the places that we have been protecting because of whatever past experiences,
Mm-hmm.
or protecting because we've been told they're not meant to be. And it feels like such a beautiful invitation to deepen that full self-acceptance and that full self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know much about astrology, but I do get a sense that Pluto is so deeply related to something expansive as well. Does that
Yeah,
resonate?
I mean, I would definitely say so, because it's like the shadow is where our inner gold lies, right? Like where our actual inherent gifts are, our authentic soul gifts. So like Pluto energy, when we allow ourselves to connect with it, because it can be really scary. Pluto in our charts often signifies the areas where like we're afraid, that we're afraid of, right? So if we feel the invitation to go there, we sometimes don't, out of fear. But if we do take that invitation and we go into the shadow work, we go into that unseen realm of the subconscious mind, we're able to really peel back those layers of conditioning and reveal our true selves, right? Because our true selves are buried within that like shadow of things we've repressed and like the layers we've put on. So there definitely is this expansive aspect to Pluto of being able to step into like the truth of your soul at the end of the day, really, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I really, really resonate with how much of us are being pulled into this too, collectively. I mean, of course, it lines up. We're being pulled because of astrology.
Yeah.
But I can see how it's so much more accessible now and more rapid now, bringing up a lot of discomfort. And it feels like these containers are so necessary to guide us through the discomfort with this awareness versus closing to it and adding more layers of protection because it's such a huge push. It feels like the more we resist it, the harder it's going to get.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you can't really escape the energy of Pluto. You will just be faced with it again in some it's harder if you don't decide to go with the flow from the beginning. Um yeah, so I mean, Pluto is obviously this big energy that we have happening this year as it's shifting signs, but what's even more interesting is that we have been experiencing the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio since the end of 2021. And so these eclipses have really pushed us to step into that north node, that like north star of Taurus energy. And Taurus is all about like our value systems. It's really like the heart chakra. It's ruled by the planet Venus. So this energy really shows up in the heart chakra. Whereas Scorpio is this more of like the sacral and the solar plexus because it's related to the energies of Mars and Pluto. So there's been this shedding already happening since the end of 2021 of things that maybe drain our energy, that take our power away, that are not in alignment with our true values. And this year is really the completion of the eclipses in these nodes. And the first eclipse that's happening this year that's opening up the eclipse portal on April 20th, which our retreat is centered all around, is actually kind of like signaling the transition into the next set of signs for the eclipses, which are in Aries and Libra. So eclipses are not times like traditionally people tend to kind of fear eclipses because unexpected things tend to happen, but they're really a portal of like realignment on our soul path. So if we have somehow veered off the path that we're meant to be on to really evolve spiritually, whatever happens at this time during the eclipse portals, which it's opening April and ending in October, and it happens every year, but just in different signs. It's an invitation to trust that whatever is happening, whatever we're realizing, whatever we're releasing, whatever is beginning, it's happening because it's like the way we're meant to evolve and meant to learn in this life. So again, happening collectively, but also personally, depending on where this energy is affecting people in their charts. But what's interesting about this upcoming eclipse is that it's kind of like showing us what the eclipse is and what kind of spiritual journey we're going to be on from July of this year to into 2025, because the nodes at that point will be in Aries and Libra. And what's also interesting about these energies is that Aries is really related to Mars again and the solar plexus. It's more of that like masculine energy. Libra is more related, it is ruled by Venus again, so the heart chakra. And so with these nodes, we're taking the value systems that we've now learned over the last 18 months or so, right? Release some of the things that might be draining our energy, that might be taking our power away. And now we're really being invited to transform the way through which we relate to people. So Libra is all about relating. Transform the way through which we relate to people so that we can be empowered in stepping into our own identity, into our individuality, into feeling empowered. And really, the way we do this is through Pluto, because Pluto is forming a tense aspect to the nodes basically all year, and it's actually going to be retrograding between Aquarius back into Capricorn around the same time that the nodes are shifting signs. So what this really means is like there's going to be this revisiting of like what is the conditioning that I've received in the past, and how does this now actually show up for me in the ways through which I relate to other people, and maybe the way through which I lose my sense of identity in other people, the way that I people please, the way that I live in codependent tendencies that actually divorces me from my power and keeps me sort of unaligned in my heart space. So I've gone on for a while there around this energy, but I just wanted to flip it back to you, Jess, and maybe get your thoughts on what you think about, this energy. Have you been sensing this coming up with people? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, when you talk about getting in line with the heart space, it feels like we're really being called to surrender with trust so much more now, and to really deepen our true sense of what love is. Um, what love is. I mean, nobody really knows, right? That's why
Yeah.
with so many books and talks about it in songs, and but the quality of this energy, I think, is like that heart-centered alignment, and the true essence of who we are. Really do feel like it is that frequency of love. And I'm noticing how it's just sort of like I mentioned before, it feels so rapid right now. And that invitation of, hey, we're ready to end these old stories. We're ready to end these old paradigms. People are starting to really feel ready to own their own truth now. And that wasn't accessible 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. And I'm really noticing how it's just such a burning desire now. People are feeling that desire like big time. And then I just am noticing as well in this moment that segues really well into what we're creating in the day retreat is those desires can get really compounded with expectation,
Mm-hmm.
um, versus this desire. Like, what is desire? It's like the heart calling for something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much conditioning still that can block the true calling to move through. And I think that's what you're talking about. That's what this is all bringing us to.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Um, just before I lose, I want to come back to that because I think there's a huge piece of that we're really working with this energy. But I just had a thought also that I wanted to bring it back to the fact that I think people are more receptive to also doing this inner work and doing this inner healing, because over the next few years, we're also having this like highlighting of Chiron, which is the wounded healer in Aries, really like playing around with the North Node in Aries. So there is this like calling that is essentially inviting us to face our inherent wounds of self-worth, of like being able to self-assert, of being able to step into our power, into our independence, in order to evolve spiritually and to feel fulfilled on a spiritual and like soul level. So I think that really comes into
Mm.
play as well, because this is the healing work that you and I both do. Like it is the Chiron energy that we're working with when we're working with inner child healing, or we're working with deconditioning these beliefs, all of these things as well. But yeah, going back to, what you were saying about getting to the truth of the desire, I think that's such an important part of like, I think what we're really speaking about here is like the manifestation process, right? And understanding that a lot of our inherent desires might actually stem from the things that we were conditioned to maybe want or think that we want. And that's why it's so important to actually get to the truth of like, do I desire this because it's something I've been taught to desire, or is it something that I desire because this is actually going to give me like a core value that I have? Like let's say my core value is freedom. Okay, well, I desire to be self-employed because it's giving me more freedom over my own time. It's giving me more autonomy, and that is a core value that I have, right? So like that's something I've definitely learned. That's something I just recently stepped into. So that's all to say that like the way that we really learn this energy is by working with the heart chakra, by working with Venus, by working with the energies of these nodes I've been talking about that are related to Venus energy. And why this is even more important is because the heart chakra or Venus energy is the bridge. Like we all know this in the spiritual community, I think, but you know, for those people that might not be as familiar with chakras, like there's 7 chakras that are energy centers in the body. The heart chakra is in the middle of them, and the 3 upper chakras are quite related to, you know, like the spiritual realm and the more 4D realm, I guess you would call it. Whereas the lower 3 chakras below the heart chakra are more related to like the 3D or physical realm. So the reason we really want to balance the heart chakra, we really want to like connect to that space of the heart, connect to those Venusian principles of our inherent value system, our true desires, is because we can then balance the heart to open it up to channel the things that we are calling in from, you know, the upper chakras, from our third eye, from the things we envision, down into the physical realm through the solar plexus. And the solar plexus really is Mars. It's that like divine masculine energy, right, that creates the container for this feminine energy. The feminine energy is more of that like creative life force energy, but it does need this container to bring it into the physical realm, and it needs inspired action, and it needs the fire element. It needs to be initiated. So that's really like the energy I think we're talking about here, right? Like that process of manifesting in alignment with the heart's desires. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, you're reminding me back when you were talking about Chiron. Um, because when we were talking about manifesting from the heart desires, the beauty of going in and doing the inner child healing or any inner shadow work healing is it starts to show you the layers that are protecting the heart. And those protectors are the ones that create the illusions of what we're wanting, like you're suggesting, right? It's like I deeply in my heart want freedom. And then the protective layers can then tell us how to get there. When
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I believe that what we're feeling and as the desire is the essence of what's already in our timeline. And we can't necessarily place the how.
Yeah.
It's allowing ourselves to continue to open. We have to stay open the heart, and keep listening to every little inclination of desire, every inclination of excitement, and that sparks those like full yes invitations. And they keep bringing us closer and closer to the things that we're feeling that we desire.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when you're talking about being the bridge, it's like it's actually letting us anchor it in every time we do connect to that solar plexus and say full yes to ourselves, that confidence, that will to choose, to say nothing's going to stop me. This might seem crazy. I don't know where this is taking me, but it's what I'm desiring. It's where I'm being called to. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much beautiful surrender and trust in that as well.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's the beauty of like finding balance in our feminine and masculine polarity within ourselves, is like understanding
Mhm.
how to go with the flow, understanding how to act on our intuition, how to act on those like things that light us up, but then also and like having that trust, right? But then also like doing the work and taking the initiative and like having the willpower and the courage to take those steps in alignment with our own intuition, and with
Mhm.
what's like coming through through our, you know, intuitive but also like physical like body intelligence, right? So I love that. It's a really great
Mhm.
way of putting it together.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I guess, do you think there's anything else that would be really useful to cover right now, or anything else you wanted to add in terms of some of the topics that we've covered?
Just feel so excited to offer this space for people because I can get a sense that in conversation or listening to this and listening to us talk about it, it can almost feel sometimes like, okay, where do I start? Where do I pull? Where do I like go into all of this juice? And it's actually so much more clearer and simpler than it may be perceived in the unknown once you start taking that step. And this day retreat that we have created for you all is really a beautiful holding and container to get clear on what's in your timeline, that future version of yourself, and what layers are protecting it and what they need, and actually accessing the healing that's needed all in one day.
Yeah. Yeah. Like really taking you through this process that we've just described today, but in the course of a day, and
Yeah.
also like connecting in community in that like sacred container and space, and in a beautiful space too that's like surrounded by rose gardens, which is unfortunately I feel like they won't be blooming right now, but I think they'll be budding, so their energy is still there. But yeah, it feels very appropriate for like the heart chakra energy that we're really moving into. So
Big time.
thank you. And then I guess just on a more personal note for you is there anything else that you wanted to share with people around like your offerings, where to I'll obviously link your website and everything in the show notes, but yeah, anything like that's coming up that you wanted to talk about.
I would say follow me on Instagram, Willow Ray Healing. I post all my events there,
Okay.
and I hadn't done this in a while, but I've been feeling called to do it again. Live free oracle readings. I used to do them
Oh,
weekly for a couple of years, and I haven't done them in a few months, and so I've been feeling that desire to do this again.
nice.
Um, and I do have a cacao ceremony, since we were talking about it earlier, coming up in April 28th.
Awesome. That's
So you
great.
can learn more about that on my Instagram if you'd like.
I'll link that in the show notes for sure. It's funny you mentioned Oracle because that's something I'm
Ooh.
planning to also add to my services because it's something I use all the time, but I never thought to offer it like as a standalone thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
they're such a great tool for like really connecting to your own intuition too, right?
I know they really are. Yeah.
They're awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jess. And thank you everyone for listening. We hope you can join us on April 15th. And if you have any questions, reach out to either of us on Instagram or through our websites or whatever way you can find us. We'd be happy to answer and chat.
Thank you so much, Fanya. Looking forward to seeing you all there.